News in radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and the date is January 20th, 2016. Wall Street taking another bloodbath. The Dow is down almost 400 points. Gold is up $14+. Where it will end, nobody knows. And, well, maybe the person you're about to hear from knows. You, Andrew Hoffman, had your pulse on this. We've been doing this for years now, Andy. And, hey, you know, it reminds me of your article. The title is this the big one of Sanford and Son when Red Fox used to say, "It's the big one. It's the big one. I'm coming to join you. I'm coming to join you." And it's looking more and more like this is the big one. And if it's not, then it's a little big one, and the big one is coming soon.
Yeah, as I look at Glencore, which is now down 13% to an all-time low, and it's about to be junked, and it's going to be imminently, it's going to be bankrupt, along with all the other commodity traders and all the other, a lot of the other miners and oil companies and the banks that finance them. It's spreading like wildfire. And, you know, as you say, you know, today's article, which is not the first time I've used this term, is this the big one? And if so, or something like that, can you afford to assume otherwise? Because I've been saying people who know me, they know that I never predict. I don't say, yes, gold's going to soar this month. I'm telling you it's going to be this and that. And you know, because these are all rigged markets. But in the past week or two, anytime someone asks me, my answer is I cannot conceive a scenario where we get through 2008 without the big one hitting. And I mean, the big one meaning 2008, but not 2008 for like 3 months of stress, meaning 2008 where there's no backstop, there's no TARP, there's no bailouts, more likely there's bail-ins, and real fears that spread to this, you know, to the social part of society. I'm really terrified. I can't see how it's going to be any other way, and I just hope it's not the worst case scenario.
Yeah, well, the worst case scenario is really bad. I mean, it's like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. We're looking at war, famine, pestilence, and I don't remember what the other one was, but
plagues,
famine.
I guess that's war, famine, and pestilence.
Yeah, war, pestilence, famine, all that good stuff. I mean, I don't want to be an alarmist. Somehow humanity gets through all this stuff, but you can't downplay it. You can't underestimate it. There's no spin to be put on it here, Andy.
You know what? I am going to be an alarmist, and I never am, because I always try to find that bright side and say, like you said, it's kind of the stock answer. You know, like politicians when they used to, because they don't anymore, and they say, things are bad, but, you know, if we make the right choices, we can fix them. That's just kind of the optimistic side and stuff. But you don't even hear politicians saying that anymore. There's no way to fix. The only way is to move forward and contain the damage. And as for, you know, people like us whose job is to warn about what's going on and try to help you prepare for it, we're always careful to say stuff like, this is the end of the world and everyone's going to die and it's going to be, you know, everything's going to collapse and people are going to come shooting at you everywhere, because we don't want to scare people off, even though deep down inside, we have a very great fear that that's a high probability scenario. Well, I see, and you see what's going on in the world. Forget the United States, you know, the top of the totem pole. You know, there's a tsunami that's moving up the totem pole right now that's wiping out everyone everywhere. Currencies crashing, commodities crashing, the social disorder that's breaking out everywhere. Europe, it may implode. Brazil, you name all these places. No, it's time to be alarmist. And whether you want to just choose to listen to my financial alarms and say, get the freaking gold while you still can, because most of these countries in the world where their currencies have already collapsed, you couldn't buy gold if you tried it. In Europe, you couldn't buy it because of the VAT taxes and the scarcity. In South America and in a lot of parts of Asia, you can't buy it because it's just not available. You can buy it here at a subsidized price. And if you don't, and you want to risk holding paper money through what's going to be eventually a hyperinflation, That's your choice. But it's no longer time anymore to say, yeah, it's coming and you should think about it. It's here now, okay? It's here around the world. A lot of countries are experiencing the big one now, and this is the beginnings of it here. So start being alarmist and start doing things to protect yourself.
Yeah, and it's such a great point. I had Salenti on last week, and Gerald,
I heard it.
Yeah,
very good.
You know, Gerald's very emotional about this and very intense about it. And a few things he said I just had to omit because, you know, they were just a little bit over the top, but only over the top because a lot of you out there really can't handle it that intensely. But Gerald's calling it the panic of 2016. And look, he's been alarmist. He predicted a crash in 2010. But look, that's just...
I mean, I've been, quote, predicting from the beginning. I mean, anyone who got into our line of business has thought that way. I mean, when I sold all my stocks in 2000, and then in 2002, I bought into precious metals and started talking about it. Yeah, I mean, I was expecting bad things. I back then couldn't have imagined the things I was expecting would be so bad. I mean, I expected just falling economy, falling dollar. Now it has nothing to do with the dollar. It's the whole monetary system. And as for the economy to me, I wrote 6 months ago, the worst global economy of our lifetimes. That was the good old days. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, there's not a single aspect of the world other than the deer in the headlights, people staring at the stock market back into that's any different than 2008 right now. Of course, now no one owns stocks. Everyone lost their shirt in stocks and then real estate in the 2000 and 2008 bubble. So no one is staring at the screen right now worried about stocks. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about that they have no savings. They're worried about that the Federal Reserve has destroyed them with money printing and taking interest rates to zero so they can't save. They're worried about the instability that they're seeing around the world geopolitically, all the crazy politicians that are cropping up everywhere, including the United States. And you know, so to me, the crisis conditions are just a heartbeat away. And, you know, once you start seeing the talk, I mean, you're starting to see now the talk about which banks are exposed to, for instance, energy. Then you're so, oh no, the financial system is back in the game again. Because it spread so freaking fast from commodities to currencies to now you have high yield bonds. I mean, God, take a look at the HYG. You know, I wrote about junk bonds portending collapse when it was, I think, 84. It's a 76 today. This is like back to almost the 2008 lows for high yield bonds. So it spreads pretty darn quick. And again, these banks now are far worse off than they were now. The world has added tens of trillions of debt. Everyone knows it, the corporations and municipalities. Everyone is levered to the hilt, the central banks themselves, the sovereignties. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to save. I mean, all they can do is print money. And it won't be print money with the hope. It'll be print money with fear. And everyone will sense that fear and realize that everything they've done before has failed.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, what good is printing money going to do at this point? Confidence is, it's like a balloon, right? Once you pop it and once the air is out of the balloon, you can't reinflate that balloon because it's done. And that's where we're at now. Like you said, dollar, U.S., last one to fall, perhaps. But then again, you don't know. The system is so fragile.
Oh, the dollar will be the last one to fall. I don't know how. I don't know if they'll all fall at the same time. And I'm not even saying, when I say fall, I don't mean it's going to go to zero. I mean, the system will probably be reset. You know, I was listening to someone else saying, you know, the dollar of 1944, like Mike Maloney was talking about, is not the same dollar as 1971 or the same dollar as today. The dollar will be here. It won't be the same dollar. It won't have the same purchasing power, that's for sure. But if you want to understand, because most people listening are Americans, just how much danger America is from a financial standpoint. There's an article on Zero Hedge, which I highlighted in mine today. Even I'm still thinking about it, how astounding it is and how ominous it is for the United States, because it's a perfect example. It's a perfect representation of what's going to happen to the dollar as far as how far above the mean of the standard of living Americans have enjoyed by abusing the reserve currency. What I read, okay, now keep in mind, only 4% of the world's population lives in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. 22% of the GDP, and I would argue that that number may be overestimated because of the cheesy accounting, right? 22%, 28% of the debt of the world is in the United States, and again, I would because we have the most advanced derivatives and off-balance sheet entities of any country, I would bet we have more than 28% of the world's debt. But let's just say 4% of the population, 22% of the GDP, and 28% of the debt. Do you know what percentage of the global stock market capitalization United States stocks are, which would mean, basically the Wilshire 2000, which includes all the big and small cap stocks. Do you know what percent of the world's stock market capitalization the U.S. is?
Actually, I knew the answer to that. I think it's about 48%.
52.
Okay.
52. More than half of the world's equity valuation. And that doesn't even include like unicorns and all the private, because I would bet that there's not a country in the world that has even 1/10 of our private equity valuations, the Ubers and the Snapchats and all this garbage, right? So just in the public equity, it's 52% of the world's equities in the United States. And if you include the private, it's probably 55 plus. How can a nation that is the world's largest debtor, that only has 4% of the people, that has no manufacturing base, that is by far the most indebted nation on the planet, that's only able to even pay its interest by holding interest rates at zero. How can they have more than half of the equity valuation in the world? It is beyond belief. And as I said today, I don't know how that number is going to go down, whether the world hyperinflates and other markets hyperinflate more, or we just simply crash down. I will guarantee you that within the next, 10 years, that 52% number is going to be so much dramatically lower. And when you talk about 50% going down to 30% in markets that are probably falling on top of that, we're talking about an incredible loss of equity, far more than the loss of equity in houses during the whole mortgage crisis of 2008, probably dramatically more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, that's presuming that the stock market is preserved in its current unreal state.
And it might not be.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't know where the chips are going to fall. I'm sure you caught the article that they're now allowing the banks to use Kremlin accounting, as we used to call it, for their oil loans.
Well, the thing is, the beauty of it is, and you probably saw, Holter wrote a couple articles, saying, well, first they said that, they leaked it somehow, and then they denied it on Twitter, of all places. I love when they do it. Just like last week, that Coach Lakota, the guy who was the Minnesota Fed president, he literally 3 weeks after he left, he's, as they call it, trolling the Fed, saying, oh, it looks like those credit spreads are widening. Not so good for Fed credibility, right? I mean, to be on Twitter when you're at that high of a level is just beyond belief. And the fact, by the way, that Obama's like the #1 Twitter person on earth just shows you how sad this country has become.
And most of his,
they tweeted, oh no, that's not true. But you saw Zero Hedge's response. Oh, they stand by it. They have their sources, and I believe it. But people, again, this is the thing: the bailouts, the TARP. The money printing, the QE, that ship sailed. Remember in April 2009 when FASB, the Financial Accounting Standard Board, basically said that banks could do that for everything, particularly mortgage bonds, marked to fantasy. And look where we are a few years later. It's not going to work. If they do it, they will be called out. And the fact is, while they're doing it, credit spreads are exploding, and CDS, credit default swaps, are exploding, and high yield bonds are collapsing. People know that this stuff is going on. No one's going to believe the balance sheet of a bank or a financial institution of any kind that claims that they don't have the same kind of exposure that they should. It's going to be just like 2008 all over again with no backstop. And the fact that the Fed is doing this stuff, and more importantly, stupid enough to let it out there and then to debate about it. It's kind of like, who was it again? It was Maloney. He's going, oh no, it was Jim Rickards. He had a special thing going, look, of course these guys are going to deny it. That's what they do. Just like Saudi Arabia is denying that they're going to let the peg break. Just like China was denying they were going to let the peg break. They deny it the loudest right at the top before they do it. And so all those pegs are going to break. I've been talking about this forever. All the banks are going to be exposed for their bad loans and their derivatives behind the bad loans. And, again, this is the time to be alarmist. I think this is the big one. And if it's not the big one, it's going to be coming soon. It's kind of like the Canadian central bank. They had their meeting today, and there was a 50% chance that they would go to negative interest rates. So then they say, oh, they were disappointed because they stayed at zero. They're going to do it anyway. If they don't do it now, they'll just do it next month or the next month. So, be prepared for the worst. Don't let anyone in an official stance, an official position, tell you anything that's better than expected, because everything is going to be worse than expected, guaranteed.
Yeah. Oh, you're 100% correct. I mean, you're just seeing it, the great unwinding take place, and there's just no way out. So be prepared, have plans, and in fact, I just got your email now, your news release countdown to the end.
Yeah, that was yesterday, and the one I wrote this morning that you'll see up on the blog later today is the one that says, has the big one commenced? Can you assume otherwise?
Yeah.
But yes, countdown to the end. And you know what that one was about? That wasn't my quote. That was a quote from the president of the European Commission, Jean-Claude, whatever his name is, Juncker. They're talking about the end of this Schengen agreement in Europe. The Schengen agreement was part of the whole putting together the European Union, where it says that you have freedom of traveling between the countries. And now Austria just closed their borders, and they're saying that Germany might close its borders. And, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, Europe is on the road to anarchy right now and war. And this is the president of the European Commission saying so. He's saying, this could be by the summer, the latest, the whole thing could fall apart.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the situation is really quite grave. So that's why you need to be ready. Anyway, Andy, so we got to go to your website, to Miles Franklin, and you've got an event coming up. Tell us.
Yes. Everyone, if you live in the Denver or Boulder area, listen to me very carefully. We are just a week away, meaning Thursday, January 28th at 6:30 p.m., right here in Broomfield, Colorado, right between Denver and Boulder. Myself and Andy Schectman, the president and co-founder of Miles Franklin, are holding a special free question and answer meeting. It's a free dinner. It'll go on all night until all the questions are answered. And all you have to do is show up. So if you're interested in coming to this meeting, just email me at ahoffman@milesfranklin.com.
All right, ahoffman@milesfranklin.com. Go over to milesfranklin.com. Sign up for Andy's daily missives. They are must reading, and you'll also be on his audio blog as well. And Andy, buckle your seatbelt. Just get ready. It's going to get interesting. Hopefully Rickards is right, and they'll all just sit down in a room and figure this thing out, and we'll go to SDRs. But I just don't think anything is that simple.
Oh, no, anymore. I don't even know what planet he's coming from. There's no SDRs. We're not replacing fiat currency with a basket of fiat currency. We are replacing fiat currency with fear. And if you don't have something that people want in this period of fear, you're not going to be able to buy anything. And one day they'll have new currencies, but it's not going to be anything that's even remotely related to the fiat Ponzi crap we have right now.
That's for sure. So, and go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. We post all of Andy's articles up there, as well as a host of other authors who have their hands on the pulse to give you the information of what's really happening, what you really need to know. It just amazes me, Andy. 95%, 99% of the people on the street are clueless about what's unfolding.
And you know what? Enough already. How much can we try? Our goal is to get 1% more, because that's all the goal there is.
Well, I can tell you that it's happening. I know that last Friday or Thursday, maybe it was maybe Wednesday, largest audience ever had on Financial Survival Network. Largest number of you out there listened to all of our various shows on all the platforms, because So I'll leave it at that, Andy. We'll talk to you next week, and keep your fingers crossed and your seatbelt buckled.
All right, you too.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.